There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, how are we doing? This is an incredibly special pre Christmas episode. Look at this, another new plaid shirt. This means I am definitely going down the trad life. Uh, getting into it. I am going to buy a trad bow. Maddie convinced me. Well, she didn't even have to convince me. The passion she's got for it, I want to shoot trad. Right, sorry if I'm looking away from the camera. I'm just pulling up something here. After the episode I recorded with Maddie, I got this message and I dropped my coffee cup when I got this from the one, the only Mr. Shot IQ himself, Joel Turner. The message read, just listen to your podcast with Maddie. I've never asked to be on a podcast, but since I've made you moist, oh my God, why did I say that? I'm asking to be on yours. Ha ha ha. Merry Christmas. You know that? Well, that is the coolest Christmas present you could ever get. So, ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Mr. Joel Turner. Joel, thank you so much for that. I don't know if you can hear the butterflies in my voice, but it's such a privilege to have you on the podcast. Uh, Now, Maddie said you're quite interested in the state of the UK regards shock control. We've done a survey, you've seen it. So to let people know about shock control, can you introduce yourself and give us some of your background, please?
Sure. Joel Turner I created a company called Shot IQ, and it was born from necessity because I did not have shot control. I just didn't have control of my mind when I was, coming up through the ranks of archery, and my life revolves around archery. And it has become just such a guiding light in my life and the life of my family. And people are like, well, you're just shooting bows or whatever. But because when you can control yourself in an archery shot, the rest of life becomes much easier. And so that was me just trying to forge this path and figure out how to control my mind because there was lots of books and videos and all that stuff when I was coming up, but nobody had really addressed the true problem. And I found myself in the dire straits of target panic, as they call it, which little known to me at the time was just natural. It's how your brain works. We're all trying to get control of our mind in high stress situations. Well, our mind is built to keep us safe. And we're doing an activity that is the antithesis of that. It's the opposite of that. We're creating an explosion and we're supposed to ignore it. And we're not built for that. We're not built for shooting things. We're built for throwing things and running and all those activities that used to sustain us. But then came shooting because we needed to become more effective at hunting or whatever it may be. And or warfare really is where archery really got its start. And there just was not a way. And you can look through the history of time and the history of the bow and arrow and see how target panic has been dealt with since the beginning. Why is it that the folks in Bhutan, where archery is their national sport, why is it that they tie a little piece of wire to their arrow at a certain distance down the shaft of the arrow so that that piece of wire touches their knuckle? It's a mechanoreceptive trigger. It's been used for thousands of years. Why in Kudo archery is in the books of Kudo, why is it that the arrow is not ready to be loosed until the point touches the knuckle? It's a mechanoreceptive trigger. It's the use of mechanoreceptors. Little known to me, that is how I gained control of my shot as well. But it's just fascinating to me to watch through the ages of time and see how this has been dealt with, how shot control has been dealt with, and how archery has become a pillar in the life of many people and even in some religions. In the Muslim religion, archery is one of the four pillars, and which was fascinating to me, which I found out when I did a clinic in Australia. So it's I became a law enforcement officer and still not in control of my shot. And that's where I had to really buckle down and figure this stuff out. So, and it has completely changed what I have discovered and what I have literally simplified has just changed the course of many lives. So it's a journey that has had impact, and that's what I'm searching for in life.
I mean, you weren't just a law enforcement officer, were you? You were a member of the SWAT team and a firearms instructor over there.
Right. Yeah. So I was actually became the lead firearms instructor for Washington State, which means that every law enforcement officer had to come through me for firearms training. And that's where we really got to do the experimentation to figure out how the brain works. And that was the birth of Shot IQ. I was a sniper team leader on the SWAT team for 19 years. And, through that, through those experiences, are where you really learn like, is this real or not? What really happens to your mind in extreme stress situations? And that's one of the things, it's interesting because that's one of the things that's lacking, in that study that Maddie did with folks. Shot control is, I shouldn't say it's lacking. It just really hasn't been discovered so much in the UK because there's no bow hunting
Yeah.
in the UK, as you're well aware, right?
Oh,
And
breaks my heart
because
every day, that does.
because you don't have that, you do not have the epitome of high stress situations as the end goal of your archery.
Yeah.
So without that end goal, people don't seek shot control. I mean, you've got tournaments, lots of tournaments there, which is great, but it's not near as high a stress as bow hunting.
Yeah.
So without that end goal, it's a whole different dynamic over there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, what surprised me, a couple of the respondents, uh, one's actually an ex military sniper, and even his response was focus on the aim. And I'm thinking, well, hang on a minute. If, even our military aren't aware of this, what hope do folks that aren't shooting for a living, what hope have they got?
Well, I mean, it's out there. The
Yeah.
code is
Oh, it is
cracked,
now.
but even in the military, what you saw from that sniper in the military was, I focus on the aim. But if that sniper only did that, like if that was it, then they wouldn't be successful in hitting the target because their conscious mind would be in the aim.
Yeah.
And if your conscious mind is in the aim, you're going to go what we know is now open loop on the trigger, which that's okay if you're within 300 meters, but if you're outside of that, your pre-ignition movements that are linked to your trigger motor program are going to override your point of impact. So that, all that fancy talk means you're going to punch the damn trigger and it's
Yeah.
not going to work out. So that's a classic case of a good shooter not knowing how they do what they do.
Yeah.
And not being able to explain it. And in the military, in our military as well, people are, you have a phenomenal operator at the highest level of an anti-terror team or whatever it may be, but then they become a coach to others. And one of their jobs is to become a coach to others, other indigenous folks in some country where they have to train them up or whatever. They may be phenomenal shooters, but they don't know how they do what they do.
Yeah.
And that's where the science and the art of good shooting is lost.
Yeah.
And it's a sad thing if people just realize, just take a step back, just a little step back and go, okay, how do I do what I do? I just shot an amazing shot. How did I do it? But they don't ask the right questions because they think about their technique and their form and all these things instead of what did I say and when did I say it? Those two questions. If you That's the start of your blueprint.
Yeah.
You just got an amazing shot. Okay. Not how did my bow grip feel? How did my anchor feel? How did my back tension? How did I work the trigger? It's what did I say and when did I say it? Because that's the big difference. When
Yeah.
you're successful, you're leveraging the ultimate skill of the human being that we now know is the ability to get loud in your own head with the right words at the right moments.
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
know.
people ask me all the time, hey, what's Shot IQ about? What do you do? I said, well, I travel around the world leveraging the ultimate skill of the human being. They're like, well, what does that mean? I'm like, okay, great question. I'm glad you asked, right? So, what is the one life skill that has gotten you through everything, through every stressful situation, be that shooting or an argument or a debate or a presentation or a car accident, whatever it may be? What has gotten you through? And the answer is always one level not deep enough. They always tell me it's mental toughness, it's grit, it's persistence, it's consistency. Those are the results of the skill. They're not the skill itself. How do you get consistency? How do you get discipline? You do that by leveraging the ultimate skill, which is getting loud in your own head with the right words at the right moments.
Yeah.
And so
Ma-
that's what I teach. I teach people how to get loud and what are the right words and what are the right moments scientifically to put your conscious mind in the right place.
yeah. I'm just, I'm known for going off on tangents. There are a couple of
Preach.
things I want to ask. I first came across you when it was on the Gritty Bowman podcast with Brian
That
Call.
was
I
that
mean, how
was
many
in
years ago was that? This
that
was
was in
when
2016.
Iron Mind Hunting.
Hmm. Yeah,
And
that was 2016 with Brian Call, and that was one of the first. That was like one of the first big podcasts that I had done, or big at the time.
yeah,
And boy, what I know now, what I know now compared to what I knew then, and just the simplicity of what it is now. And why when I trained Brian Call, why is it we sat on the back of Brent Hahn's porch at Valkyrie Archery? We were on his back porch.
yeah,
And I was probably a bit nervous talking to Brian and because he was a big celeb at the time. And I instructed him in all these things. And it was fantastic, right? He was just, breaking these awesome shots and doing all these cool things. And then we go to the 3D range and he instantly starts punching the trigger again,
yeah,
right? Because I had not trained him in the ultimate skill. I had only stayed on the surface of draw back and aim, then address the trigger, then here I go, and then you talk. But the talking through the pressure increase on the trigger back then was, pull or whatever it was.
yeah,
But it's not that anymore. It's a conversation that has a beginning and no end, right? The end is the shot breaking.
yeah.
Like you're not allowed to stop talking anymore. And because I didn't know it, I couldn't leverage it at that time. That was 2016. That was the same year that Joe Rogan bought the
Oh,
online
wow.
course. And yeah, Joe Rogan was one of the first to get the course, which was amazing to me,
Yeah,
So I didn't realize that Joe Rogan was such a cerebral person, but I do know those things now. But because you get an you get an email when somebody purchases the course, I get
yeah.
an email, and so it came through as Joseph Rogan. I'm like, huh, I wonder, I wonder if this is the same guy. And it was, and I emailed him, and he's been a fantastic person in my life ever since. So,
Look, I
yeah,
mean, of course, he had you on the podcast, didn't he?
yeah.
I've got to ask, what was that like? I mean, were you as nervous going on Joe's podcast as I am having you on mine?
No. So, just with the things that I've been through in my life and what I know now about mind control, if you get nervous, if you're shaky or whatever, you're standing on the line, you're talking to a person, that makes you nervous or whatever.
Yeah,
As soon as you allow the thoughts to get louder than the thinking, that's when things start to spiral, right?
yeah,
So, talking with Joe, I was not nervous because I'd shot in the backyard with Joe before, so
yeah,
it's not and as long as you are not shooting at me, I'm okay with you. If you're if you want to see pissed off, then you would have to put rounds my way.
Yeah.
So just the perspective that I have, right? I mean, you can get nervous all you want, but unless somebody's trying to kill you, it's really not that big a deal.
I I I know from what you've worked with a lot of folks I follow online, and there was one incident in particular, one happening in particular. You'd been at one of Dan Statton's elk-shaped camps. I think it was one of the first ones you did,
Yeah.
and he put the video up and he showed your techniques.
I,
And for people that don't know, your techniques are different, different from
I
any
get
other coach out there.
yeah.
And when he posted up, you see all these comments
Oh yeah.
down below from folks that obviously hadn't got a clue who you were, hadn't got a clue what you did. And there's all this negativity coming your way. I think this might have been, what, 2020, 2021.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
And then in 2022, Bodie walks out onto the biggest archery stage in the world. You know, he's what, 15 years old.
Right,
He's not shooting youth, he's not shooting young adults. He
right.
walks out onto the open mail pro and absolutely slayed it. Because I've been following you for so long, when the video came up on YouTube, the Vegas shoot, and I saw Bodie walk out, I'm like, come on, win, win, win. And the farther it's getting, the more excited I'm getting, and the more I'm willing
Sure.
him to win. And I'm sure a lot of folks who knew you in your system were like that. Was that a pivotal point for you and Shot IQ that suddenly, for all these folks that didn't know who you were, and all these folks that doubted your system, that was the moment that on a global stage, it was proved your system works and it works so well.
Yeah, it was a pivotal moment. Just, we'd been working up all that stuff. And, when people watch Elk Shape, it's not different. In fact, Dan always gets on me for being softer now, right? After that video came out, there was so much negativity that he had to put out another video that was like, look, this is you folks don't have the concept or the context of what's going on. And so there was negativity, but there's no other way to do it. There's no other way to get you to get loud in your head. And that's
Yeah,
exactly what I'm doing at the start is, at the start of any clinic, you have to shoot in front of everybody with me sitting there, maybe tapping you on the head with an arrow, maybe me just talking to you. And people are shaking, some uncontrollably. They can't get their arrow on their rest, just shooting in front of people, which public humiliation is the biggest fear of the human being. That's why public speaking is so difficult for folks.
yeah,
So now shooting in front of people, if your system is weak, I will break it.
yeah,
I will break it to start with just to get you to go, okay, this is what we need to do. This is how you have to get loud. This is what just happened to you. I give them this very recent event, which just happened minutes ago, and they fail miserably at it. They get an arrow to go out the front of their bow and they're happy about that. I'm like, nah, this is not what we're doing. We're just now using our bow instead of shooting our bow. We're using our bow to practice the ultimate skill. But that moment for Bodie, he was only 15 by 1 day.
yeah.
So I believe on that Vegas was February 4th, 5th, and 6th, and Bodie's birthday is on the 5th of February. So on the 5th of February, I was able to walk up to the registration counter and say, I would like to buy Bodie Turner's pro card, please. So he was a
Nice.
pro for 1 day when he won that. And what a pivotal moment for a young man to do that. And what a proud dad moment for me. But as far as shot IQ goes, the sales, I mean, I was still a cop at that time, and the
Yeah,
sales skyrocketed after that. and of the online course. And that's when I said, okay, now I can retire because I had the time in as a cop, so I could retire and put that my pension in the retirement system. And I could just, now it was real. Now
Yeah.
people understood what we did, and Bodie's been the epitome of shot IQ since he was 3 years old. But I put him on a very specific path at 3 years old. He's been shooting a bow since he was 10 and a half months old.
Oh, that's
I mean,
incredible.
he couldn't even stand up. I mean, I had this little tiny fiberglass bow with a little piece of string, and he would pull that thing. He would get himself up on the couch or beside the couch. He would lean on the couch and he would draw that thing back. And because his mind would go to drawing it back, it would no longer be in standing. So he would fall down on his ass and then he would shoot an arrow. So it was funny. But at 2.5 years old, Bodie is shooting balloons out of the air with his suction cup arrows in the kitchen.
Oh, wow.
And But, when you're dealing with a young mind like that, as soon as I started to put Bodie into a more precision environment, at 3 years old, I bought him his first compound. No sight. I didn't have a sight on his bow until he was about 9 years old, 8 or 9 years old. And so he got to see the trajectory path of the arrow, and that is what hooks people into archery, is being able to see the trajectory path of the arrow. That is what fascinates the human mind. And that's why we're all drawn to traditional archery.
Yes.
And so we get to see it. And so that was kind of the start of really getting into shot IQ and, Bodie's path. At 3 years old, what do you think Bodie did when I bought his little index finger trigger? He punched the crap out of it because that's how the human mind works. But at that time, I knew how to fix that mechanically and not try to fix his mind. What are you going to do with a 3-year-old's mind? You're not doing anything with it other than you give them options of, we're going to shoot this type of release aid, right? Which was at that time a tension activated release. It was a Carter Evolution.
Yeah.
And because it has a safety on it, that is what separated his little mind from the aim, because he had a safety. So there was some physical movement that was required in the release itself that that separated him from the aim. And that's where we all get stuck, because the human mind is trying to use the sight picture as the stimulus for the shot. So when you've got that sniper saying, well, I just look at the point of aim, and archer says, well, I just pick a spot and I burn a hole in the spot. Well, when you do that, there's going to be pre-ignition movements linked to your trigger motor program. There's no way to stop that. And if you're shooting a barebow shot that's triggerless,
Yeah.
then you're really in trouble, because now your release mechanism is directly connected to your brain. And so, at 3 years old, I had Bodie shooting a tension activated release. And by the age of 6, that's just how we did it. And so you could put any release in front of him and he'd be able to work it with control. Not necessarily needing to know how he did it, but then once his mind developed enough to where he could understand how he did it, like, what do you say and when do you say it? And so that's how it all became. That's how Bodie Turner was built, I guess.
Yeah.
And the rest is history. So,
And of course, was it the year after they brought in, he shot at Lancaster?
mhm.
And that was the most thrilling match I've ever watched. I mean, even Maddie said she watched that and she's on the edge of her seat when they were shooting those 12 rings.
Yeah.
And
So
I'm sat
that
there,
was
I've got white knuckles on the sofa.
so that was last year, and so funny because Bodie's very calm up there. He's outwardly calm, but inside he's just as nervous as everybody else.
Yeah,
And so that was last year's shoot where he shot all those 12s. And, you know, at one point, because you never know, because you go from the practice area behind all the curtains, there's the practice area, and they try to mimic the lights.
yeah,
And it's very difficult to mimic the lights. And because when you get out on the actual stage, the lighting's different, so you see your sight aperture differently, and you're just hoping that the first one goes in the middle. You're just hoping the first one goes in the middle. And the first year that he won it in 2023,
Yeah.
I was able to coach him on that one as well. And I got, it was so funny because Bodie's up there shooting and he turns around him and the first one went in the 11, thank goodness. And then he turns around me and goes, it's sighted in now. Oh, it's just wonderful to see. And when I watch Bodie shoot, I know shot timing. I know, if his how his follow through looks and follow through not being a movement, being just something that happens when you break a surprise shot.
Yeah.
But I can see if he's got tension in his shot or if he doesn't, just by if Bodie, like when you watch Bodie shoot, if he just when he breaks a shot, boom, and it just unfolds, like his whole arm unfolds and it
Yeah.
looks kind of flowy, people are in trouble. If if he shoots bop and you see this stoppage here, that's when you're like, he's feeling some tension. He's frustrated about something, right? So
Yeah.
that I'm sure you watched in last year's shoot off when he's breaking all those 12s and then he gets up
Yes.
against Mike Slosher. And there was that one shot where people were like, oh, that's a long hold for Bodie. It's a long hold for really long hold for Bodie. The commentators are going, and I'm sitting in the back looking at him like, come on, boy. And what had happened in that particular shot, the reason why it was such a long hold is because thoughts aren't thinking, right? So at
Yeah.
that moment, his thoughts got louder than his thinking because he noticed at that in that one shot, and he didn't have to shoot a 12 on that shot, he just needed to shoot an 11. On that shot, he noticed that his release hand was shaking.
Oh,
And so you can imagine what's going through his mind. He draws back, he said he drew back and aimed, and the aim was good and he
yeah.
was shooting the Onyx clicker. So his next move is to press to the click, right? So he draws back and aims, and he said on that particular shot the aim was really good, and that may have been the start of the cascade effect. So he drew back and aimed. Okay, aim's good. Then he pressed the click, and then he's like, "Oh my God, my hand is shaking." So if you're the thought, right? Thoughts aren't thinking. So thoughts have no instruction. Thoughts have no strategy.
Yeah.
Thinking is the epitome of both of those things. So when your thoughts get louder than your thinking, which you have no control of your thoughts, there's no way for him to go, oh, no, I'm going to just put that out of my mind. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
Fine. Just know how to override it. So there he is in the middle of this shot. The commentator's like, oh, it's a long hold for Bodie, right? And so in his mind, he's like, oh my gosh, my hand is shaking, which instantly takes away from his pressure increase because his conscious mind is now in the shaking of his hand.
Yeah.
So how does he put it back? The ultimate skill of the human being. You got to get loud with the right words at the right moment. So he was able to, because of his experience in high stress shoot offs and the knowledge of shot IQ and all these things, he was able to reach into the toolbox and go, I got to use my word of squeeze. So there he is. He drew back and aimed. Yep, that looks good. Press the click. Yep, that looks good. Oh my God, my hand is shaking. It's still shaking. Okay, got to go into the toolbox. Here I go. Squeeze. And by this time, the shot is now out of his accuracy window, right?
Yeah.
So, but he's screaming in his head the word squeeze, boom, and the shot broke and it went in the 11. And, if you don't have that toolbox, the train is going to derail. And that's where you see guys start to punch the trigger and do all kinds of craziness when they get themselves in trouble and they don't know how they do what they do. They don't know how to get themselves out of that situation. And that's the ultimate skill that we practice.
Yeah. I mean, there's times when I'm practicing on my own that I will actually talk out loud through my shot process, but then put me in a competitive environment where I can't do that. And it is so easy for the thoughts to overwhelm. And like you said, thoughts aren't thinking. Once those thoughts are there, you're completely off what you need to be doing and you're focused on the thoughts instead of that actual execution. So, like I say, practice on my own. I'll actually speak the words out loud. So they're there. And it's really hard to, well, certainly for me, hard to master being loud inside your own head.
Mhm. So, and that's where I failed in my instruction for years because I was chasing the surprise break, but I would talk people through it. And even in the firearms world, this is how I started. I got people to talk themselves through it. I talked them through it first, and then I would have them talk out loud. But because I wasn't so in tune with the ultimate skill, I didn't manipulate it enough. I didn't manipulate their speech enough. And now that we know of the ultimate skill, commentary shooting, what you're doing with talking out loud is the path to get you very quickly on the right path to shot control, because when you talk out loud, you don't say things that are thoughts.
Yeah,
You only say things that are thinking, right? You don't voice your thoughts. You don't draw your bow back and go, okay, got my aim. Okay, now I'm going to put my thumb on the button. Oh my God, I hope I don't punch a trigger this time, right? You
yeah,
don't say that. So it just cuts through all the crap, and you only say the things that really matter. And if you're searching for words when you're doing your commentary shooting, like this is the way we get people in shot control now. What do you say and when do you say it? But it has to be born out loud. We always tried to conjure it up internally, and getting to the point where, did you say it? Oh, yeah, I said it. No, you didn't, right? Because they're not voicing it out loud. So their thoughts are still much too loud. And again, thoughts aren't something that you can control, but you can always control your voice.
yeah,
And it's got to be the loudest one in the room. So when you are doing your commentary shooting, talk like you are teaching. And that's where we get stuck. We get stuck in, okay, I should say this, and then I say this, and then I say this. Well, the first part of it is this sun getting like too crazy for your video? Is it all right?
oh no, I was actually just thinking, God, the weather looks absolutely
Yeah,
gorgeous there.
today, I mean, it was horrible yesterday, rain and nasty, but today the sun's out and it's right in my face, and I'm enjoying the heck out of it. So,
Oh, I
um,
would be. I'd crave sunshine.
yeah. So when you draw back, draw back and aim. Got it. Say something at the end of the step. Draw back and aim. Yeah, looks good. Got it. Separate from it. The next thing you're doing is you're putting your thumb on the button, or you're putting your finger on the trigger, or you are increasing tension in your trad shot. But when you draw back and aim, that's all you're doing. When you put your finger on the trigger, that's all you're doing. When you say, here I go, that's all you're doing. And then you talk. There's 4 steps in every shot. Number one is draw back and aim. Number two is address the trigger. Number three is here I go. Number four is talk. And it's got to be a conversation. It used to be just one word of pull or keep pulling, keep pulling, keep pulling. But is that how you would teach somebody? Are
Yeah,
those the words that you would use if you were teaching somebody else how you did it? And we've found that those aren't really the words that you would use. You would use more of a conversation, because people just try to start into their trigger. Okay, I got my trigger. Here I go. Keep pulling, keep pulling, keep pulling. And it's just too abrupt, right? You have to just ease into the trigger pressure increase. You have to ease into your back tension increase. And if you have to do that, then that's what your conversation sounds like, right?
yeah,
So if you take an index finger trigger, let's say, draw back and aim. Got it. Address the trigger. Get all your fingers off the release. One finger around the trigger. Got it. Okay. I'm going to increase my presence by saying, here I go. Here I go. And say that. Say it like you're teaching somebody else. I'm going to do this. And then you do it. I'm going to increase my presence by saying, here I go. Here I go. And now, I mean, now it's really the conversation you're about to have is the only thing in your world. And now I'm going to talk myself through the pressure increase. Okay, start in easy. Okay, just a little bit. Yeah, that's good. Stay in that. All right. Squeeze. Bow until the shot breaks.
Yeah.
It's a conversation. I can't stress that enough. It's not just words because that's not how you would teach. Now, eventually, you can certainly put it into that. But when you're first starting into shot control and you still have some wonder in your shot, like, gee, I don't know, I wonder if this one's going to go well. Well, you've already kind of started down the wrong path with that. Don't wonder. Know exactly how you're going to do what you're going to do.
Yeah.
You know you're going to draw back and aim. You know you're then going to address the trigger. Then you know you're going to say, here I go. And then you know what you're going to say in your conversation. And once the conversation becomes easy and you're able to tell somebody exactly how you do what you do, that is where power comes from. That is where confidence comes from. It's the definition of confidence, understanding how you do what you do.
I mean, I've got your book, read
Mhm.
your book, and I thought my shots were improving. I'm getting there. And
Mhm.
it was at a tournament I shot in October.
Mhm.
It was the very last arrow of the second day. It's a rising red stag, and
Mhm.
this thing's in the shade, and I can't see. Excuse me. Uh, you can't see the rings even through binos. You can't see the rings. It's just silhouetted. And I'd had a few bad shots on the first half of the course. The second half, I was on to shoot clean. And I'm thinking, this is the first time I've done this. And it's that last arrow. And it's that last arrow that always gets you, isn't it?
Mhm.
And I come up, let the pin settle. I'm on the trigger and I think, it's time. And I'm thinking, squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. And then a thought pops into my head. This shot's taking too long to go off. And I feel
Yeah,
the
yeah.
finger. It, and
Yeah.
the only thing that comes into my head then is, don't you dare punch that fucking trigger. Keep squeezing. And I keep squeezing. And I'm not even aware the shot's broken. All I see is I'm just thinking, this was the only time I managed to get this loud in my head.
Mhm.
And I'm just screaming at myself, keep squeezing, keep squeezing, keep squeezing. And all of a sudden, through my scope, I can see my arrow going off down towards this bloody target. And it landed right behind my pin. And I can actually, that was the first time I've been able to remember
Huh?
everything that I did. And when a thought popped in, I didn't, I actually over shouted the thought. And
Yes.
that was,
That is the
it's a
ultimate skill
seminal
of
moment for me.
ah, beautiful, man. It's the ultimate skill of the human being. But it wasn't just the keep squeezing, right? It was that affirmation of don't you dare punch the effing trigger, right?
Yeah,
That has to be in there because you will feel once you feel the thoughts getting loud, it's just this awareness. You know how to override it now.
yeah.
And that's the beautiful thing. Now, if that happens again, which it will,
Oh,
because
yeah,
we don't have control of thoughts, but we certainly have control of our own voice.
yeah,
And that is the skill. You're like, you feel that just like Bodie. Oh my gosh, my hand is shaking. Nope, not doing that. And you did it in a tournament that meant something to you, but it's not as high stress as bow hunting. And when you do it on a live animal, like the first time that I really remember doing it, well, I remember doing it back in 2008, and you've heard those stories on the podcast before where I
yeah.
shot that hog in 2008 and then I shot that bull in 2010. The one in 2019 was the bull of a lifetime for me. It took me 14 years to draw this tag.
Wow.
And the situation was just incredible. I snuck in, or my hunting partner and I snuck in on this bull, and how things went, the thoughts that went through my head. Can we map it out? Are you okay with that? Let's map
Yes,
it out.
certainly.
So I know that this bull is famous, and it was famous from the Native Americans that hunted this area because he was in this hole that down on this river bottom that they would not go into.
Yeah.
Just it was too much effort. It was too thick, too nasty, and they had nicknamed this bull the Growler, right? He had a bugle that was just it was awesome, right? So my hunt partner and I, they told us how to get there, so we did it. We had to cross the river. We had to go into this place, and I finally got the bull to bugle. And he was living in this patch of brush that was just almost impenetrable, but the path that these elk had used was like bare dirt, so we knew exactly where they were. So we got up in there, and I knew exactly how I was going to call this bull in. Again, it's very powerful to know how you're going to do what you're going to do. I knew exactly the sounds that I was going to use. I knew the reaction this bull was going to have. It was like textbook. So my hunt partner and I, we got in there, and he's about 10 feet to my right. And we got set, and I use a very specific bugle to get this bull to try to kick me out, right? So he's got no option but to come and try to kill me.
Yeah.
So I do what I call the bull calling cows bugle. I look at Seth, my hunting partner. I go, "You ready?" He's like, "Yep, I'm ready." I'm like, "Okay," because we've done this so many times on so many bulls. He knows what's coming. I know what's coming. So I look at him. I go, "You ready?" He goes, "Yep, I'm ready." I'm like, "Okay." And he's shooting a compound, bare bow with a release. I'm shooting I'm shooting an old Hoyt Spectra riser that had been warped with recurve limbs on it. So I had
Wow.
ILF plates made for it. So, anyways, cool old bow. I'm shooting it. It's a right-handed bow, shooting it with my thumb, and no sights, of course. And so, you ready? Yep, ready. Okay, here we go. So I do the bugle, and this bull doesn't bugle back, but he is. I can hear him coming through the brush, and he is literally. I see an elk like fly to the side because this bull is literally using his antlers to move elk out of the way to get to me to try to kill me, right? And I can't see him yet. There's a big root wad of a down tree in front of me, about 30 yards in front of me. And I can't see him yet, but I can hear him coming. It's just chaos happening in the brush. And I remember looking over at Seth, and he draws his bow back. And 2 days earlier, we'd had an incident where I called this big 6x8 bull in, and Seth had drawn his bow a little bit prematurely, and so he had to hold this bow for 2.5 minutes. And
Wow.
it's an old Hoyt Ultratech, so it's got the original cam and a half cams on it, which only got about 65% let off. So, but Seth's a very strong man, and he's holding this thing for 2.5 minutes. But when it came to the shot, finally, he was pretty exhausted, and he shot over this bull. So all that being said, I look over at Seth, and he draws his bow back, and I'm thinking, what in the hell are you doing? Like 2 days before, you drew your bow back too early and you screwed it up because, now you got to hold your bow. And these are all the thoughts that are going through my head, right?
Yeah.
And then I went, I wonder if he sees something that I don't see. Right? I mean, like I snapped myself back to reality by actually talking in my head. I wonder if he sees something I don't see. And just then I look forward and I see the giant rack come around the root wad at 30
Wow.
yards. And I'm like, oh my God, that is the biggest bull I've dealt with to date. And it's just, I mean, mass and these huge brow tines coming out. I'm like, oh my gosh. And it comes around the root wad, and I'm not drawn yet with my recurve. And it's walking towards us. Now there's very little vegetation because it came into this opening.
Yeah.
And I know Seth is already at full draw. Now I've called a lot of bulls in for Seth, and he's killed a lot of big bulls with me. And so I know he's at full draw. And this thing is the bull of a lifetime that's walking, and it's going to walk in between us. We're 10 feet apart, and this
Damn.
bull is going to walk in between us. I mean, that's the path that he's on. And this thing is mesmerized. I mean, he wants to kill something because he heard that bull out there, which was me. And so I start talking to Seth out loud. I'm like, just shoot him. Shoot him if you got a shot, right? And I'm saying this out loud, and this bull is just completely out of his mind. So the bull stops at 10 yards, and sticks his antlers in the ground and starts throwing mud and sticks and stuff all over the place. So he's
Oh, wow.
displaying. And I'm trying to get to full draw. And this thing is going from it's facing me and then it would turn broadside. And it's facing me and then it would turn broadside. And I'm kind of like, And so finally, one time I got caught at half draw. So I'm half draw on my recurve. And this thing, he's completely inundated with, throwing mud and sticks all over the place with displaying. And I go to draw my bow back and he's looking at me at 10 yards. And I'm there stuck at half draw. And I'm like, oh gosh, don't screw this up. I know Seth's at full draw, right? I mean, he could shoot this thing anytime. But this time he actually let me get the shot. So I I was able to just ease my bow down. The bull's looking at me at 10 yards and evidently didn't see what I was, and he starts raking the ground again. And then I remember in my head, because my thoughts are, oh, don't screw this up. Bull of a lifetime, right? Those thoughts have no instruction. They have no strategy attached to them.
Yeah.
So again, snap myself into reality by saying, hey, stupid, when bulls are raking trees or they're raking the ground, they have their eyes closed. I tell people this in elk calling seminars all the time. But in the heat of the moment, the thoughts were, "Don't screw this up, bull of a lifetime," right? And it's like, "Hey, wait a minute, he's got his eyes closed." And so I look at it. He's only 10 yards from me. I look at him like, sure enough, he's got his eyes closed. And so I draw my bow back, and I'm looking down the shaft of the arrow. And just as I draw my bow back, the bull turns perfectly broadside at 10 yards. I'm at full draw. I'm aiming at the exact spot I want to hit. All I got to do is let it go. And that's what it my mind was screaming, just let it go. Just let it go. You're going to get the bull of a lifetime. Just let it go. And that's probably true. But I remember saying, just like you did, nope, I am not doing this. I'm not going out like that. I'm not going to shoot the bull of a lifetime with an uncontrolled arrow because this majestic critter will mean nothing to me
Yeah.
if I shoot it with an uncontrolled arrow. And people are like, well, that's just ridiculous, right? But understand at the time, I'm still a sniper on the SWAT team,
Yeah.
right? Shot control means everything to me. It means more to me to shoot a controlled shot in a high stress event than it does to be successful in that shot. Because if I am successful, but I shoot an uncontrolled shot, I just made myself exponentially worse at life.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that. So I remember full draw, looking down that arrow, going, nope, I'm not going to do that. And I was shooting a grip sear at the time, and I'm like, just keep pressing on the sear. So I'm just keep pressing, keep pressing, keep pressing. Bink, that thing broke, and I shot the shot. The arrow went in the exact place that I
Oh,
was looking.
wow.
It was so, I mean, went right through the bull. Bull runs off, ran 60 yards, fell over dead. Bull of a lifetime. And I did it. I controlled myself in that extreme stress situation. And that means everything. I mean, how powerful is that for you to be successful in whatever you do? The only way you're going to have confidence in that is understanding how you do what you do. And that's what we now take to professional sports teams, uh, companies, corporations, whatever it is. When you understand how you do what you do, it's just fascinating.
Yeah, 'cause I mean, you're not only shot IQ now, you've got mind IQ up and running, haven't you?
Right.
Where you've worked with big corporations, was it Major League Baseball teams, all
Right.
kinds.
Yeah.
So
Go ahead.
I've got to ask, how old was the bull? And did you measure him? What was his measurements?
The bull was, I did not, I didn't age him, but he was at least 7 years old at
Wow.
that. Um, he was a 6x7 and scored 322 for a Roosevelt. That's
Damn.
just, but numbers are numbers, whatever. I
Yeah.
control myself on the bull of a lifetime, and
Oh,
that's what.
yeah. I mean,
So,
I get really annoyed myself if I shoot a bad shot and
mhm.
hit exactly what I'm aiming at. It really annoys me because in my head, that luck of hitting what I'm aiming for with a bad shot is reinforcing bad habits in my head. And it seems to be a lot easier to reinforce bad habits than it does to develop good habits.
It's not that they're habits. It's natural. It's not natural for you to control a shot, for you to say, nope, I'm not doing it like this, and for you to override your central nervous system. That's completely unnatural.
Yeah,
When you're when you shoot a bad shot, it's because you stopped talking and you allowed that shot to be handed to the subconscious. And the subconscious shot it and it went in the middle. And your subconscious is like, see, we don't need any of that crap that Turner's talking about. Look what I just did. But the problem is there's no way to blueprint it.
yeah,
So you just do it again, and the next shot is a mystery. Maybe the next shot goes in the middle too. It's a mystery, but the next one doesn't go in the middle, and you have no way to fix it. And that's where the frustration starts. The subconscious is like, yeah, we didn't hit it, but we were more efficient.
yeah,
And that's good for the subconscious. It's always pushing us toward efficiency in everything that we do. It's pushing us toward efficiency, smooth, right? We don't need to sit there and hold on the spot. Why are you aimed at the middle and not shooting? It doesn't make any sense. There's no computation for that. So it's constantly this override of your central nervous system, and that's why archery is such a phenomenal skill for life. Because again, when you can control an archery shot, you can control anything, anything that you come upon. So,
yeah. This is something Maddie said to me. She said she's learned to apply it in so
mhm,
many other situations. I mean, that conversation I had with Maddie, how we talked for 4 hours, I'll never know. It just went so
I
quick.
listened to the whole thing.
That's called being a glutton for punishment. That is
Yeah,
listening
right.
to me talk for 4 hours. But she said, like, she showed me when we finished recording, we sat talking,
Mhm,
and she was showing me photos she took at the gun range.
mhm,
I mean, Maddie hadn't shot a gun before, but when she showed me these videos and these photos of the targets
mhm,
and the centre that much is blown out, and I said, "How do you do that?" And she just looked and said, "Shot control. When you've
mhm.
got it, you can shoot anything."
You can shoot anything. I mean, I shoot six or seven different bows a day. Right-handed, left-handed, horse bows, whatever, right? I shoot pistols, I shoot rifles, I shoot slingshots. It is shooting itself is unlike anything else because in shooting, you have to put your conscious mind into a pressure increase
Yeah,
that causes an explosion.
yeah,
That is so unnatural for the human mind. Whereas all other sports, when you understand open and closed loop control systems, the other sports, you have to keep your conscious mind out of the movement. That's a skill in itself as well, because
yeah,
you have to know how to direct your conscious mind. And now we get into the mental game. Everybody's talking about the mental game. Ah, the mental game of golf, the mental game of baseball, the mental game of shooting, the mental game of whatever, right? People tell me all the time they're working on their mental game. I'm like, oh, well, what is that? And they don't have an answer. Sometimes they go into some diatribe about, this and that, but the mental game is understanding where, when, and how to direct your conscious mind into a specific task at a specific moment.
yeah,
That's the mental game. And you utilize the ultimate skill, right? Because the how of the mental game is always speech, getting loud with the right words at the right moments. So when you understand open and closed loop control systems and the ultimate skill and the mental game equation and thoughts aren't thinking, that's what mind IQ is.
yeah,
It's getting all the packages put together so that you have the right words for the right moments and you know how to get loud and what it sounds like and what it feels like for your particular moment of truth, be that pitching a baseball or making a big business deal or shooting an arrow, whatever it is. It's all based on you understanding how you do what you do.
yeah. Uh, when we were talking about recording this, you
Mhm.
said you wanted to talk about non-hunting societies,
Yeah.
and I'm really good at pissing people off. I am. I'm really good at it. This is the one place on this podcast I'm normally very introverted. I like to keep below the parapet.
Hmm.
I like to be like a little unobtrusive grey man and there. But when I get on this podcast, I don't mind me sticking my head above the parapet and saying, "Come on, give me the flack." I'll say
Yeah,
something
right.
controversial.
Right.
So, thoughts on non-hunting societies?
Well, it's human beings. I mean, that's how we're all alive still because
Yeah,
somebody hunted something, right? And when you get into the emotional aspects of that, that's where people start to, think about you're actually causing the death of an animal or whatever. But when you talk about you're on the carnivore diet,
yeah,
well, the meat from wild game is so much better than the meat that is, manufactured basically or grown by human beings.
oh yeah,
And just the fact that you are now using that animal to practice the ultimate skill of the human being.
yeah,
And what I find is that if you look around the world in societies where hunting is not a pivotal thing, human beings will always have an outlet.
yeah,
And especially human males. If you don't hunt, you are denying primal urges and such, and you will find an outlet. And hopefully that outlet is a healthy one. Like maybe it's working out or maybe it's something, but a lot of times it is not
yeah,
healthy. It's alcohol, it's drugs, it's whatever it is in life. It seems to me, and this is my opinion, but it seems to me that people that don't hunt, be that with a firearm or a bow, have a loss of purpose,
yeah,
loss of primal purpose. People say, well, they have purpose. My purpose is to make money or whatever. My purpose is to have positive impact on people. And I do that through archery, shot IQ, mind IQ. But it just seems like a listless society. And that listless society seems to be always searching for something. Like there's a lot of males in your society in the UK, I imagine, that want to hunt.
yeah,
They're not allowed to. They're not allowed to follow their primal instincts. And when you do that, it really affects life. And like, have you ever have you ever bow hunted?
no. 2021, I should have gone to Texas with a listener, but old Creepy Joe had still got the travel ban on from the UK. The guy I should have been going is a corrections officer from Snohomish in Washington
Oh,
State.
oh,
Uh,
okay.
his in-laws own a cattle ranch down in Texas, and they were
Oh, very
being
good.
they'd got horrendous problems with feral hogs. So, I mean, over here, I don't know. It's like I know over there some mega expensive hunts. Over here, those that can hunt it can be very much a rich man's sport,
Sure.
and it, his shift patterns were getting crazy with COVID in the prisons.
Oh yeah.
We'd still got the travel ban on, so
Yeah.
it never actually
Uh,
happened.
so
But
when you shoot an animal with your bow and you control your shot, like if you have the whole package,
yeah,
there is a feeling that comes over you of accomplishment that is very rare. It's very hard to find in any other aspect of life because now you're talking about primal. You're talking about instincts. And again, when you nurture those instincts, it makes for much happier people
yeah,
because you always have something to look forward to. It's the next season, it's the next hunt. It's you always have this guiding light that's just you're always working toward. It increases your physical fitness because now you're working out just not to be fit, you're working out so you can get your ass up the mountain,
yeah,
right? Yeah. And you're working your mind constantly with mind control and you're shooting so that you can shoot a controlled shot for a humane kill, right? And I get the whole emotional thing about hunting, but have you ever ran an experiment, and I would be curious to see with the children in a non-hunting society. And I consider the UK a non-hunting society just because bow hunting is not allowed. I know they have some hunting and such, but
Yeah, very limited though.
with the children, have you ever gotten a group of children together and asked them to look up in the sky, like if you ever saw the sun in the UK, and there was clouds in the sky? Ask the children, what do you see in the clouds? In the US, especially in the 90s, you ask a group of children, what do you see? What do you see? You look up in the sky, what do you see? And they'll almost always see animals in the clouds.
Yeah.
Why? Why is that? Right? That is primal. So I'm curious to see what the children of the UK see in the clouds, not knowing anything about what they're supposed to see.
Yeah.
What do you see? Do they still see animals in the clouds? That would be a very interesting test.
You know what? I'll have to ask my sister to get her daughter. She's got an 8-year-old daughter. See, my kids are all grown up, although on Friday, my youngest daughter gave me my first ever grandson,
Oh,
first ever
congratulations.
grandchild. So I'm now
Congratulations.
officially a grandpops.
Nice.
This is going to be the newest member of the archery family. This lad,
Very
I've
good.
already got it planned out. One of my friends is making him a trad bow already.
Ah, very good.
It's
Very
yeah,
good.
so excited
So
about this.
one side note, when you are teaching very young people to shoot, boys and girls are very different in what they see.
Yeah,
Their visual proprioception is very different in what they see as far as trajectory paths. Young males can see the trajectory path of an arrow. So
yeah.
they can draw a bow back and they can get all stupid with anchor point. They don't need an anchor point. It just gets all crazy and they can still hit stuff. Young females, males see where the arrow is going. Young females and well, all ages of females see what the arrow is touching.
Oh,
Two completely different things. So if you're trying to teach your young daughter to shoot instinctively because that's what you do as a man. You draw back and you burn a hole in the spot and you do all the romantic traditional archery stuff and you just burn a hole in it and you shoot and you don't see your arrow. Your daughter does not see the same thing.
oh,
So you're going to add massive frustration to her life and she is going to leave the sport because she's not going to be very good at it.
yeah.
If you give a female an aiming spot to put their arrow on, they quickly surpass the males in quality of shooting.
Oh, wow.
Quickly surpass the males. So this comes into effect when you are backing vehicles as well. Why do females have trouble backing vehicles? It's because when they look in the mirror or if they look behind them, they see what the vehicle is, what the end of the vehicle is touching.
Yeah,
Males see where the end of the vehicle is going. Like here, when we have a backup camera, when you hit reverse, we in the more modern vehicles like 2018 and newer, I think,
yeah,
when we have a backup camera, you actually see the trajectory path of the vehicle in the
yeah.
backup camera. There's lines that show you that. That's for the female mind. That's
I
not for the male mind.
never knew that.
Right. So that's why females have trouble backing vehicles until they actually see what they need to see.
Yeah,
Females see what the farthest thing in front of them is touching. Males see what the farthest thing in front of them is the trajectory path of. They see where it is going.
damn.
So a quick test you can do with your wife or daughter or whatever is take their finger and tape a laser pointer to it that's on the same plane.
Yeah,
Okay. The laser pointer is not on, it is off. And have the button turn the laser pointer so the button is available to you from the
yeah,
side. Okay. So, and then you just ask them to point at something on the wall, a distant object on the wall, like the laser is touching it,
yeah,
but you don't have the laser on. And then once they're on there, what you'll see is they can't see the angle of their finger, so they'll just put the end of their finger on the object, but because they don't see the angle of it, it's usually like this. And then you turn the laser pointer on, you hit the button on the laser pointer, and it's feet above it. The laser
damn.
is feet above it. So That's why I just was at the archer range 2 days ago, and a buddy of mine was there. One of the law enforcement officers that I used to work with was there with his daughter and a bunch of her little friends that they were having a birthday party at the archery range, which was awesome, right? But all the girls are shooting over the target. And I said, hey, man, you got to give them a spot to point at. Otherwise, they're going to put the point of their arrow in the middle of the target every single time because that's what makes sense,
Yeah,
right? They put their arrow in the middle of the target, but because of mechanical offset, they're going to shoot over it every time. So I got them to put what I usually do is I hang a tennis ball off the target.
yeah,
I have them put their arrow point on the tennis ball, and then when they shoot, wherever they hit, you just move the tennis ball accordingly.
yeah.
So, and then again, the females quickly surpass the males in quality of shooting. So that's just one thing. If you are teaching females how to shoot with no sights, you have to know that.
That is so
So,
useful to know.
yeah.
See, I got to ask, what are the anti-hunters like in the States? Because in the UK, they are nothing short of rabid. There's a guy I follow on Instagram in the States. He'd been duck hunting and he had a message from somebody on Instagram, and the things they said to do, they were going to do to him and his family were truly horrific.
Mhm.
And he managed to trace our ISP. Turned out it was a security guard from Bristol in the UK.
Mhm.
And we see this with, we had hunting with dogs outlawed here. So they
Mhm.
now do drag hunts. Occasionally they'll grab a fox if a fox comes in, happens to be in the area.
Mhm.
But we get what are called hunt saboteurs. And these folks, they go out with balaclavas and face masks on. You know, they believe so much in what they do, they don't want to be identified. And they will string up wires and stuff. They don't care if they, for people who are supposedly animal lovers, they
Mhm.
don't care if they cause a horse to break its leg or break its neck. They don't care if a rider comes off and trampled. This is what they're after. Do you see that level of just, it's just visceral hatred? Do you see that much in the States? Or because you have a hunting society, is it generally more accepted?
Well, hunting is becoming more and more accepted here, but if there were hunting saboteurs, as you have, there are laws against that here.
Yeah.
Like if you harass a hunter, there are specific laws against that here. And here, people don't do that as much. Like they will have their parades and such in cities, but very rarely will they actually come out in the country because they usually won't make it back. So, but there are laws against that here, so we don't usually deal with that so much. And again, hunting is becoming more and more and more accepted with the carnivore diet and COVID. I mean, COVID blew our numbers of hunters through the roof
Oh, I can
because,
imagine.
yeah, because people finally realized and they got the perspective of, oh, wait a minute, I can't just go to the store and buy what I need. I have to learn how to do this stuff.
Yeah.
And so the numbers of hunters since COVID has just absolutely skyrocketed. And that's a good thing because people are understanding how the world really works and their perspective has changed. There are still anti-hunters here. I mean, we've got PETA and all, Humane Society of the United States and all of those things, and they're very well funded. And but it's becoming less and less of a thing. I think hunting it, but I don't surround myself with any of that stuff, so
Yeah.
I don't see it as much. And there is a healthy fear that if you were to go out and sabotage a hunt, there is a healthy fear in the United States that you might not make it back. So,
FAFO.
yeah, right. Yeah, right.
Chad, I saw
Yeah,
that many stories coming out of the States and hearing it when during COVID of folks saying my neighbours have always been anti-hunters, anti-Second Amendment. And yesterday they came round and asked if I'd got any spare game meat, or
right.
that I'd got a rifle they could borrow. And I think, like
Yeah.
I say, I think it really opened people. what's the saying? We're only 9 meals away from civilization breaking down, and I think that, like you said, it opened people's eyes and scared them.
Yeah, and people have to have that fear just to change their perspective. I mean, they have to think bigger picture, and that's the whole thing. Like, if I'm getting somebody through an anxiety attack, it's because they've lost their perspective,
Yeah,
right? They've lost their presence on what is really happening right now. And once you get people to look bigger picture, like if you don't hunt and you have to go, you go buy all your vegetables if you're a vegan or whatever, that's all cool. But if you don't grow all your own stuff, you are probably less than 9 meals away from becoming a hunter,
yeah.
right? What are you going to do? Are you just going to die? I don't know. I mean, people do some strange things when faced with adversity. So it's people got to think bigger picture, and then maybe they'll realize that hunters aren't so bad.
Oh yeah, I know that we over here the press are. They, I I don't see a lot of American press, but over here they have definitely got an agenda, and they definitely. When I was growing up, newspapers were about news. News programs were about news.
Mhm,
Now the language used, be it left leaning media or right leaning media, they're all using much more emotive language to,
mhm,
and it's almost they're trying to create this divide. But then again, if you want to control a population, you divide and conquer, don't you? And like I say, our media seem to be responsible for so much of this. It's getting, if you actually stop and think, it's getting quite scary.
mhm. And it is, and so take that back to thoughts aren't thinking.
Yeah,
What these folks are doing in the media is increasing the volume of thoughts.
yeah,
That's all they're doing. They're increasing the volume of thoughts, and most people run their lives on thoughts alone. They have these little situations that happen when they actually got themselves through something. Whatever that is, right? They got themselves through something. Well, how did you do it? You did it by getting loud with the right words at the right moment,
yeah,
right? But when you stop talking in your head, that is when you become a victim of the media because all they're doing is increasing the volume of your thoughts. You're like, yeah, hunting is bad, right? And you just start, that has no instruction, that has no strategy on your survival,
yeah,
right? And because we've become so soft, people still continue to live their lives that way and are somewhat successful. It's just like shooting a bad shot that goes in the middle,
yes,
right? You're like, oh, well, dodged another bullet. And what I tell people a lot is I highly recommend that you go get shot at. Don't get hit. I don't recommend you get hit, right? But I highly recommend that you go get shot at. And you have that feeling of, holy mackerel, this person is literally trying to kill me at this moment. And map your emotions then. Map your thoughts aren't thinking then. And it will change how you view the world. And it just, most people's problems are not that big. Problems don't become big until somebody's trying to kill you.
yeah.
And you have to have a plan for that as well, So it's I want to change people's perspective out there because when your problems aren't that big, you just become a happier person.
Oh yeah, I mean, I crave a simple life now. I mean, you know, years ago, I got sucked into that thing of consumerism and comparing your life with everybody else's, and all it does is it it pushes your stress level through the roof.
Mhm.
And it's right what I say, comparison's the thief of joy. Just live a nice, simple life, keep things easy, and life is much, much happier.
Mhm. When you talk about primal skills, what we do at Elk Shape, what we do, or maybe start some whitetail clinics. What skills are we working on there? We're working on shooting skills, right? Which is
Yeah,
basically mental control at the highest level. You're looking at primal skills of finding and harvesting humanely a whatever animal it is that you're after.
yeah,
And then you have the physical fitness bit of it. And now you have this end goal. I need to get physically fit to be able to accomplish these goals, to be able to climb that mountain. And when you tap into people's primal skills, that's what we're all looking for.
yeah.
I mean, life is too short to shoot uncontrolled arrows, right?
Damn right
Life
it is.
life is too short not to have this information, and it simplifies your life. It gives you perspective. It does all those things that we're all looking for, no matter what society or what our beliefs are. We're all looking for the primal skills of survival.
Yeah,
And so, here in the States, we nurture that and we hunt and we eat what we kill. And it's a simple life and it is very fulfilling. And there are things missing in societies that don't hunt. And that scares me to death because, when people get fanatical, that person is running on thoughts alone.
yeah.
And they're very loud, and if they're louder than the thinking, that's where people start to spiral. And I was talking to Maddie about your guys's weapons laws about carrying a knife and this and that. I'm like, holy mackerel, you can't even carry a pocket knife there.
No, it has to be a non-lockable blade with of a blade length less than 3.5 inches. If you get caught with even a 1 inch bladed lock knife without what what the courts consider a justifiable cause, and each court can, it's very subjective. There is no objectivity as to what justifiable cause is.
Wow.
It's subjective as to who you're in front of. You can be looking at getting locked up.
Wow.
It's scary, but it's not stopping the problem we're having with knife crime at the moment,
Right.
because the I, I can't get this about politicians. You put them in power, and
Uh,
because they're in a position of power, they automatically think they know better than the people they're governing, that they are intellectually superior. Well, the numbers say no, you're not. Like I said in the last episode with Maddie, I think it was 2022 to 2023, the year, September 2022 to September 2023. 49,500 knife enabled crimes in this country, and we have ridiculously strict knife laws. And they've just banned what they call zombie knives, which are knives with serrated edges or the word zombie written on them, or made to look like they're designed to kill a zombie.
mhm.
3 days before that law came into existence, a lad was stabbed with what they called a zombie knife, and they said if that zombie knife law had been in place, he wouldn't have died. Well, yes, he would have, because if they couldn't get a so called zombie knife, they'd have gone into the kitchen and pulled out a butcher knife
Right.
or a chef knife. If they are
Yeah.
going to kill with a knife, it doesn't matter what the knife looks like, they will kill with a knife. And
It seems like once people get into power, they lose their fear.
yeah,
Because now they have security or whatever it may be. And as soon as they lose that fear, then they establish laws according to the fear that they feel.
yeah,
And you're supposed to not have fear either because I'm protecting you, right? Well,
yeah.
they're not protecting you. You don't have a security detail, right? So
Oh, exactly.
it's this lack of fear and lack of perspective, and the right people haven't been stabbed yet.
Yeah,
I mean, that's a horrible statement for me to make, but the right people haven't been stabbed yet,
yeah,
right? So they haven't seen it. That fear has not been put into them. And so now they're gonna inflict their laws on society. And man, I mean, I know that people in the UK think that maybe the US is like the Wild Wild West or something, but because there is a healthy fear here, uh, I mean, imagine if we had extremely strict gun laws, people say, well, then you wouldn't have the school shootings. we're having the school shootings because we have people that can't think,
Yeah,
right? They become fanatical because thoughts aren't thinking. And it all comes back to that. And they've lost their perspective and they don't have that fear because schools are such a regulated place. I mean, there's no school shootings in schools that have teachers that are armed.
yeah,
I mean, there are those schools in the United States where teachers are armed. I
yeah,
mean, that just seems so crazy. But those schools don't have school shootings. Like I'm scared to death. I'm just hoping Bodie makes it through his senior year in high school because, I mean, there's kids in schools now that just you don't know and they become fanatical and you just don't know. So, and I think Bodie's kind of a target because he's very successful. I
yeah,
mean, 17-year-old kid that's, a multiple time world champion and all these things, well, that can create some jealousy,
yeah.
you know. So that's one of my fears. And I know what Bodie's going to do if he's in that situation. He's going to go after that kid. And, good on him for it.
Oh, yeah.
But gosh, as a parent, just scares me to death. But it's not about an access to firearms thing, you know. So I don't know.
Was it
It's a
Ted
tough.
Nugent said the the states hasn't got a gun problem; it's got a mental health problem,
Oh yeah.
and it's the fact that there's not the help available, or these kids, because so many things are so disjointed with so many different agencies, they're not talking to each other, and
Mhm.
kids that should be picked up and
Yeah, it's as
flagged,
a cop
they're not.
yeah, I was a cop for almost 21 years and we dealt with a lot of mental health stuff. So you'd have somebody that's just whatever, they're dealing with schizophrenia or whatever their mental illness was, and you would detain them and take them to the hospital, and the hospital would almost beat you back to town, and then you're dealing with the same problem over and over and over, and it's a mental problem, and people are going to use whatever weapon system they can get,
Yeah.
be that a kitchen knife or a gun or whatever. It's a sad state of affairs, but
Well, you've only got to look at what's happened. I don't know if you've seen much news from Europe over there. What happened a couple of nights ago in Germany,
oh
where
yeah.
somebody drove a car 60 meters through a crowded Christmas market.
Yep.
You know, what 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 are they going to do next? Ban cars?
Yeah, it's you can ban whatever you want. People are going to figure it out. There's
Yeah.
lots of ways to inflict harm on people, and
Oh yeah.
people are going to figure out a way. So you can't ban everything.
No.
So you just gotta
And
buckle down and get perspective.
criminals, by their very nature, aren't going to follow the laws anyway. I mean, when our first big gun ban came in after a massacre in Hungerford, and it was a guy with a legally held gun, but
Mhm.
apparently this guy the police had been notified that people were concerned about this guy, about
Mhm.
his mental health and what he might do. But because firearms departments are, particularly firearms licensing officers in this country, are so underfunded, they hadn't
Mhm.
got time to get round to him. So he went out and killed a load of people.
Mhm.
But so, of course, most semi-automatic pistols were banned. I think you can have a semi-auto pistol over here, but it has to be almost as long a barrel so as to make it a short-barreled rifle.
Okay.
But the politicians won't admit that. Well, it's our underfunding that's led to this happening. They'd
Yeah.
rather just say it's all on the shooter. Well, yeah, he's a. I mean, guns don't people. Guns don't kill people. It's the people behind them that do that pull the trigger. But instead of politicians saying, well, maybe we should put a bit more money into being the firearms department so they can check up on people more often, or when somebody's concerns are reported, they can follow up on it. It's no, let's abdicate all responsibility and
Mhm.
pass it on to the individual, and we'll ban this type of gun. Well, guess what? 2022 to 2023, 3,500 firearms related crimes in this country, in a country that's got some of the strictest gun laws out, because again, criminals will always get guns and they just don't follow the law.
Do your police not carry guns?
They have to be what's known as an AFO, an authorised firearms officer. And there aren't many of them in this country. They don't.
Wow.
They have to do a qualification to be able to carry a taser. What they carry is now an extendable baton and it used to be CS spray. It's now called Parva spray. I think I call it Police Against Violent Arseholes. But they carry like an equivalent of a pepper spray and an
Uh,
extendable baton. That's it. Unless they're qualified for taser or qualified for firearms.
wow. Well, I've used both, and a firearm is much more effective than a taser.
Oh, isn't it just? But they, I mean, we had a case over here not long back where a police officer was put on trial for murder. Thankfully, he was found not guilty. Uh, they tried to stop a car. Police officers behind it, police officers in front of it. The guy driving the car reversed back into the police car behind him, then drove at two armed officers. So one of the officers put a shot through the windscreen and killed the bloke.
Mm,
Which,
good
what
work.
else do you do in that situation where somebody's pushing, accelerating 2 ton of metal at you? There's nothing else you can do. That is your only option. And of course, the press jump on this. Oh, the guy was a that loving father to be. He was a good, but is this, that, and the other? How they do.
Yeah.
And at trial, it came out that I think it was 3 nights before he'd been in a nightclub and shot some bloke in the legs. They were going to arrest him for attempted murder. He was involved in drug dealing and several
Mm.
gang, attempted murders for gangs. And thankfully, common sense prevailed and the officer was found not guilty. But that caused a lot of the Met Police's firearms officers to turn in their weapons because they said, well, if we're in a situation where somebody's trying to kill us and we shoot them,
Mhm.
we don't want to be AFOs anymore. And it's genuinely frightening.
Yeah. And that's, during the whole stuff that we had going on in 2020 and 21 with all the riots and all that stuff. There's defund the police and all these things, and people just, those are folks that have never had to call the cops before.
Yeah.
And it's, are you going to protect yourself or, we can't be there in the first 5 minutes of every situation. So you
Yeah.
have to be able to protect yourself just for those survival means. But it's not that, people try to get more funding for police and they try to really, bump up the numbers of cops. But if you strip the cops of their ability to do anything, that's the problem, right?
Oh,
If there's no
yeah.
regard for, if there's no respect for police officers anymore, and like if you show up as a cop with no gun in the United States, you have you have no respect whatsoever from the
Yeah.
people folks you're talking to. So I'm not sure what they're relying on in the UK as far as just this respect level, and maybe it's old world stuff where cops are more respected. But boy, here your weapon system actually changes the respect level. Like if you go up against, you're dealing with a veteran in a DV situation. Well, that veteran has maybe seen combat overseas, and if you show up with just your handgun, there's no respect level there. You show up with an AR system, they know what that means, and it's completely different. It's a completely different reaction from them. It's a more healthy respect. Not that you're pointing your gun at them or anything like that, but if you show up with a different system, they like my patrol rifle was always a lever action 30-30.
Oh, I
And so
love lever actions.
yeah,
They're the
so
coolest looking rifles ever.
and and I didn't, I did it for obviously more effectiveness for terminal ballistics and for ballistics, in-flight ballistics and stuff like that. But when you show up at a scene that is out of control with a 30-30, a lever action 30-30, and I've got a revolver strapped to my chest instead of a Glock or whatever semi-auto, pick your poison.
Yeah.
So I've got a revolver on my chest, a 30-30 over my back. It's a different response from people. They
Oh, I imagine.
instantly know. I mean, even if they don't have any idea what those weapon systems are, they're different.
Yeah.
They're not seen as lesser, they're seen as more because they are different. And the reaction you would get from people is completely different. So, you know, it may have been the wild, wild west, but I showed up with the right stuff.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day when I was growing up, it was like we when I was growing up, we had corporal punishment in schools.
Mhm.
You played up, you got the cane. You
Right.
lipped off at a teacher, and the board rubber came flying down the classroom at you.
Mhm.
And if you went home and said, the local Bobby's just given me a clip round the ear, or I've had the cane at school, it wasn't, we'll go and sort them out. It was, well, you must have done something wrong and got another clip round the ear off your mum and
Right.
dad. But successive governments have legislated away the ability
Mhm.
of parents, teachers, and the police to enforce discipline. And they make sure kids know their rights.
Oh boy. Yeah.
And we've now got a generation of out of control, feral brats with no respect for anyone or anything.
Right.
And you, you keep thinking, well, what's gone wrong? And you try and you say you want to do something about it, and you're immediately branded as some like kind of far right nut job,
Yeah.
and it's awful. It really is.
Can you still spank your kids in the UK?
You have to be very, very careful.
Mm.
I mean, growing up, I got spanked 3 times, and I knew if I got a spanking, it meant I'd done something really wrong, and I didn't do it again.
Uh,
But if you get witnessed now, the first thing that happened is social services get involved, and they come and take the kids away while they investigate. You know how yeah, that,
yeah, it's a bit different here. Like you can still spank your kids here. You can't leave more than transient marks on them,
yeah.
but you people will be called, the cops will be called. Like if you're spanking your kid in the middle of Walmart or whatever, there's probably a better place to do that. But if you are and the cops show up, we're just like, yep, that's what you get, kiddo. It's
Yeah,
not, yeah, you don't take the kids away and
it's
stuff
not
unless obviously
been
there's a problem. But
it's not been outlawed here, but
mhm.
it's frowned upon very,
Yeah.
very heavily.
Frowned
Again,
upon, and the information is kept from parents.
yes,
Because if we find a mom spanking her child in the middle of Walmart or whatever, and you get there and the kid's like, they can't spank me. Like, yeah, actually they can. And mom's like, I can really? Yeah, yeah, you can. You
yeah,
can. But people don't know that anymore.
no,
So, and it's so frowned upon that it's gone by the wayside. But
yeah.
uh,
I
just
know in
health.
Scotland, spanking your kid has been outlawed. In England, as
Oh,
far as I'm
really?
aware, I don't think it has yet, but I think in Scotland, they outright banned it.
Wow.
And they say, but spanking your kid's the same as spanking an adult. Well, no, it's not if it's a last resort
Right.
because they are children and kids survive on
Right.
security, framework, and discipline.
Yeah.
Let them run right and just, well, you go out into any of our town centres now. I mean, kids are going in. We've got a shoplifting epidemic over here because they've cut police numbers so hard that they haven't got the officers to respond. And then the whole thing's put in, oh, well, if it's under 200 quid in value, we're not going to prosecute. So, of
Yeah.
course, you got all these crack addled
Mm-hmm.
addicts going out and
Mm-hmm.
they'll walk into shops and just help themselves. And it is out of control. It's almost as though the politicians have taken away everybody's power except the criminals. And
Right.
they've
And
now
that's
written a criminals charter.
you see that here as well in the cities where they have the strict gun laws and the strict, they keep the cops from doing anything to criminals and failure to prosecute and all those. We see all the same things here
Yeah.
in the cities, but in the real world of rural America, Those things don't happen. Like crime, and I had one of the officers that I was his sergeant, and he moved to Montana, and I have since moved to Montana as well. But he moved to Montana and he continued his law enforcement career in Montana. And I got to speak with him a couple months ago, and he'd been there for 2 years. And he says, and he was, we used to call him Walmart One because he would basically sit in the parking lot of Walmart and just shoplifter after shoplifter. He just take one to jail and come back and get another one. It was constant, right? Constantly shoplifting. So we called him Walmart One. That was his nickname. And you probably do you have Walmart there? Probably not. I don't.
They bought out a superstore over here called Asda.
Okay,
But
so
yeah, they all got rebranded Walmart for a while until
yeah.
they were sold not
So
long back.
So Walmart One went to Montana, and I got to speak with him a couple months ago, and he says, I've been here for 2 years, and I have not yet taken one shoplifting complaint in Montana. It's
Shopkeepers will pull a gun out.
yeah. I mean,
Excellent.
there's that. It still lives in some places in America, well, in a lot of rural America. I would
Yeah,
say all of rural America. That respect still lives. And that's why the United States is like the last bastion of sanity, seemingly, because it's just it still exists here. In the cities, it's just as rampant as everywhere else in the world.
yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, I used to love watching the videos on YouTube, things you see in Walmart, and there was some
ah.
spectacular things going on there.
Yeah, right,
It's in,
right.
I got friends in South Carolina, and when you're having all those riots over there, uh, there were people came ahead and said they're coming to your town now,
Hmm.
and he said it didn't matter what colour you were living in that town, everybody stood together. You know, they
Right.
got the firearms out, went out
Uh-huh.
to the town boundary and said, sent a message back. Come on, then we're waiting for you.
Yeah, right.
I thought that was so brilliant. That
Oh yeah.
I mean,
That's
they're a big city. America doesn't appeal to me. I've always said there are only two cities I'd like to see in America: Vegas and Miami.
oh.
But small town America appeals to me. I mean, I spent when I
Beautiful.
was born. My dad was a prison officer, a corrections officer. So I spent. He was at a prison out in rural Warwickshire, and because it was so far out in the middle of nowhere, there was a little housing estate of officers' housing. And for the first 18 months of my life, I lived out in the middle of nowhere, and I'm convinced that's why, although I live in an urban environment now, I'm a country boy at heart. But then again,
Hmm.
in this country, you want to move out to the country, and property is so prohibitively expensive
Hmm.
because being such a geographically small island, I think we're 800-mile end to end. I mean, most of your states are bigger than this whole
Yeah.
country is, bigger than the whole of the UK. Uh, folks who work in, folks who've got high paying jobs in big cities, they want to live out in the sticks so they can afford to just throw money at property so it pushes the prices up. And then folks are buying holiday homes and holiday lets as well. So if you go somewhere like Cornwall, the local kids, as they grow up, are having to leave the county because they can't afford to live there. They can't afford housing there. And it's happening here. I mean, our housing prices are absolutely ridiculous. London's
Hmm.
pretty much unaffordable for anybody. And we're seeing it go on into the rural areas. So, as much as I'd like to be rural and live out in the sticks, unless you've got seven figures to put into somewhere, you're not
Hmm.
moving there.
So why do you think that somebody that's got all the money in the world wants to live in the sticks? What are they seeking? What's the one thing that people are seeking that none of these shoplifters have, none of the billionaires have, they don't have this one thing. What do you think it is?
They want peace
Peace,
and
and
quiet.
peace comes with the quiet.
Yeah.
So what I was telling Maddie, because she posted that thing of she was hiking. What do you guys call it? The Rican or something?
The Wrekin, yeah, it's about
So,
half
so
an hour
she was
from me.
talking, and she was up on the hill, and there was all kinds of noise and stuff in the background, and she said, like, I just want some peace and quiet,
Yeah,
right? And that is what I find with all the people that I deal with now. I deal with very wealthy folks, and they're not that happy. They're not
no,
that happy. They're not near as happy as I am because I have places that are silent,
yeah,
like truly silent. And when you come visit me in Montana, I will take you to these places where when you stop moving and you stop breathing for just a moment and you stop, there is no sound. There's no sound whatsoever. And it is a rare place. It is a rare find to find a place like that when you stop moving and you stop breathing, where there is true silence, because that is when you can really hear your voice in your head.
yeah.
And, a lot of these times the noise is so much, be that internal or external, you can't hear what you're saying, right? Like last year, I was wolf hunting at night. We had a wolf that killed three of our yearling cows, their family ranching property there in Montana.
Yeah.
I was laying, it was 5 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't know what that is in Celsius, but it was damn cold.
Yeah, I think it's about -20, something like that.
So I'm laying against this old log. I'm 130 yards from where the wolves are going to come in. And I was laying there, and I've got what's called a heater bodysuit. It's this big, like Michelin man, puffy suit that you
Yeah.
wear. I'm laying there, and it's cold, and it's so quiet out there. I can literally hear the snowflakes hitting my face.
Oh, wow.
Have you ever experienced that?
No. I've been to places that are quiet, but not that quiet. I mean, in this country, for that, you'd need to be somewhere like the middle of Wales because, like I say, being so geographically small, we've got that many roads that even if you're 5 or 6 miles from the nearest road, if something drives down it,
Hmm.
you hear it.
Right.
And because our population's growing so much, we've got so many
Sure.
more cars on the roads.
Sure.
Wherever you are, it's hard to be far enough away from a road that there isn't somebody on it at some point and you can hear that.
Yeah. So all
Um,
these folks that we're all drawn to the woods, the wilderness, and such, but they never quite make it there.
yeah,
So the billionaire will buy an amazing ranch or whatever, and it's an ungodly amount of acreage, but they never immerse themselves in the silent places of that ranch.
yeah.
Keep the noise around them, and so therefore they're not truly happy. And who is it? Who am I to say what your happiness is? I don't know what your happiness is. But what are you seeking, right? What are you seeking by getting out in the woods? Just have you ever just stopped for a moment and listened and tried to find a place that is truly silent? And I tell you, Montana is it. It is amazing.
Do you think at first complete silence would freak a lot of people out because we're used, especially those of us that live in urban environments, because we're so used to even background noise, almost like white noise in the background? Would that real silence kind of freak people from my kind of background out?
I don't believe so because I think deep down it's what we're all seeking anyways.
Yeah,
So I've never had like if I've taken somebody to Montana, I'm like, just stop for a second. Walk over there, get 50 yards away from me, and stop for a second and just listen. Close your eyes, listen, stop talking, stop breathing, stop moving, and just listen for a second. I've never had those people come running back to me and go, "Oh my God, that was great," right? That caused me so much anxiety.
yeah.
No, I've never had that happen. So I don't believe so. I think that we need more of those places in our lives.
Yeah.
And you know, again, I keep going back to the ultimate skill of the human being. Thoughts aren't thinking. It's amazing how loud you can get in those silent places. It's amazing the thinking that you can do in those silent places because you can truly hear your own voice in your head, and that is where problems get solved.
See, I want to try somewhere silent because I've never heard real silence. This is now getting really inside my head.
Yeah. It is, I mean, I challenge people to go find it.
Yeah.
Go find a place where there's no sound. And that maybe and not artificial. Not an artificial, you're in a locked in a room that's
Yeah.
soundproof and all those things. That would be good. But man, when you can do it in the middle of the mountains, it's amazing. It is amazing things.
Yeah, and I've been watching a series on YouTube that came off the Sportsman's channel called Wardens, and it's following the Department of Fish and Game Wardens in Montana. And by God, does it look incredible when you look at some of these views as far as the eye can see, and you think there's nothing there, just nature at its very, very finest, and it looks truly spectacular.
It is.
You know,
It is amazing.
we have small play. Scotland's very there's an awful lot of open space in Scotland and in the middle of Wales, but ultimately you're maybe 40, 50 miles away from the nearest big town. You got small towns and farms dotted around. We haven't got anywhere like some of the less densely populated states in the States have got, where you can go 100 miles before you meet anybody or anything.
Mhm.
And I think over there in the States, you're genuinely blessed with that.
Oh yeah, for sure. And they call Montana big sky country. It is amazing when because I mean, like my house in Montana is at 4,000 feet elevation, and then it just goes up from there. I mean, we're right at the edge of the Rocky Mountains, so
Yeah.
like I can see the Rocky Mountains from my place, and one of our family properties is at the base of the Rocky Mountains.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, it's amazing. You'll see it. You'll see it.
I know. I used to love watching the Hushing channel. My first videos watching TAC were from the guys on the Hushing YouTube channel. And
Oh
they went out
yeah.
with the mountain ops guys and they were shooting and Big Sky, Montana. Oh, my Lord. Yeah. And I've got a friend who lives in Norfolk, and Norfolk and Cambridgeshire are very, very flat. And first time I went down there, said, "Let me know if you get a headache." I said, "Why?" He said, "Because people, particularly from an urban environment, because it's so flat, we have huge skies and people aren't used to dealing with them. And
Huh,
people from urban environment will come here and very often start complaining of headaches because they're not used to big skies."
huh.
And you
Yeah.
think that's how, I mean, flatland it is. You can just see and see and see. But I love that. I love just being able to look up and stare at the sky. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. That's
Oh,
where
yeah.
problems get solved, man. I'm telling you. That's, those, nights being out there walking back from elk hunts or whatever, there was one place in Montana that we used to hunt that you'd have to walk about 4 miles back to get back to your vehicle,
Yeah.
and just walking at 10 o'clock at night and seeing the big sky and all the stars and all the things, you just stop for a moment. And that's where, if you keep yourself in the noise, you may not solve the problems that you need to. So,
Yeah. I mean, we get even things as daft as looking at the stars. It's like if you're in an urban environment, you can't see many. I remember, gotta be about 4 or 5. We were down in Cornwall on holiday, and I looked up, and it's like, why are there so many? Why can I see so many more stars here than I can where we're at home? But even
right.
places like that now, they're getting new housing estates built, new villages built, and light pollution's taking away that thing of just being able to look up and see
Mhm.
so many stars. And you think this is heartbreaking that so many kids never get out of a city and
Right.
they never get to look up and enjoy something as simple
Mhm.
as that. Yeah, you can see stars in the city, but when you go out to a dark site, somewhere
Mhm.
dark and look up, it's a totally different experience.
Mhm. Yeah. Wait till you see it.
Oh, yeah.
Wait till you see it.
I cannot wait. Anyway, just looking, we've been going just under 2 hours.
Ah.
I don't know if you picked up the dogs barking. That's because my son's just come up from Portsmouth to spend Christmas with us. The dogs were
Ah,
going
very good.
nutty at him. So I'm going to go and get him some dinner ready.
Yeah.
I presume you're going to be a very busy man anyway. Your Christmas tree looks absolutely spectacular.
Oh yeah, it's
It
great.
really does. Where can people find you on the socials, please?
So on Instagram, it's Joel Turner Actual. There's a lot of fake accounts out there. The only
Yeah,
one that's me is Joel Turner Actual. And shotiq.com if you're looking for online courses, and mindiq.com if you're looking for a course in how to control your mind in just about everything that you do. And those are all actually under turnermodel.com, which is kind of the mothership website of for all the things that we do. And if you want to know more of my story, that's where you would get that is at turnermodel.com.
right. The
And
links for all those I will
yeah,
drop down into the show notes.
sure.
Uh, I cannot thank you enough for the opportunity to sit and have a conversation with you. Like I say, I was, the only person that knew this was happening was Maddie.
Ah, very good.
And that's because when you'd messaged me, I messaged Maddie and said, "Have you got Joel to wind me up?" She said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Have you spoken to him?" She said, "No, why?" And I said, "I've had a message asking if you can come on the podcast." And she laughed and said, "He'd messaged me and said, just listen to the podcast. And I've asked Richard a question." For just a distinctly average, ordinary Joe Blow like me to have this opportunity, it's gratitude doesn't even come close. It
Well,
really
I
doesn't.
mean, that's all I am as well. I'm seeking impact. I'm trying to impact as many lives in a positive way as I can. And I don't see myself as anything other than Joe Blow, just trying to do good things. But um, it's funny to me because I get recognized now especially after being on the Rogan podcast.
Yeah.
I'll be sitting in my seat on an airplane and people are filing past me and people stick their fist out for a fist bump. Hey man, podcast. I'm like, oh, quick story. I was at the Denver airport and I'm just standing there in line and we're going through security, and this young fella asked me, "Hey, are you Joel Turner?" I said, "Yep, sure am." So, oh man, I watch all your stuff, and all. I'm like, "Oh, great," and we started talking about hunting stories. I was asking him
Yeah.
questions about hunting that season, this and that, and so we get through the security line, and I know that he was there with his mom, and we get through the security line, and I see his mom is at the other end of the security line, but I don't see him and I had to put my shoes back on. So I reached down and I'm knelt over and I'm tying my shoes. And this guy comes up to his mom. Can you believe that was Joel Turner right there? Right? And I'm right at his feet, bent over, and his mom's like, "Yeah, he's right there." He's like, "Oh, hey." That stuff just makes me laugh. So,
Did,
yeah, I really enjoyed your podcast with Maddie, and we're trying to get folks like you and her over here to the U.S. so that you can actually experience some nature and silence and get to control your mind and some bow hunting opportunities.
Alice, I am so up for traveling out to the States.
Yeah.
It's it's one of those things, and I'm still sitting thinking, what's going on, because things like this happen to other people, things like this don't happen to me, and it's such a surreal headspace I'm in. And
Oh, why not you though? Why not?
yeah.
You've got the plaid shirt, so your trad up already, buddy.
I'm the owner of six of these now. I've started
Oh,
off with one,
nice.
and now I've got six. And
That's
I keep saying I'm going to buy a new plaid shirt every month.
well, you've already got five more than I have, so
Oh dear, Joel, it has been such an absolute. Let's say it's been an honour and a privilege to talk to you, sir. I can't
I
thank you enough
appreciate
for
it.
taking the time to
Yeah.
do this. Thank you for reaching out, and I say stay in touch. I always worry if I send you a message that I sound like I'm pestering.
Nah,
I mean, you've got
just send it. Send
you've
it.
got
People
such
send
a
me messages every day. I love them. I answer them. If I can impact your life in a positive way, if I can get you in control of
yeah.
whatever it may, shooting, life, I will do it.
That I tell you what, this is something that you don't see the media post about America, and I found it with everybody I've dealt with in the States so far that I knew either through the music side of things or through the archery side of things.
Mhm.
As Maddie said, there's this awful narrative about the States promoted by the media. And people are so friendly and so amazing and so generous with their time and their thoughts and their experience. And it's, I quick story of mine. Of what I used to be quite heavily involved in DJing,
Mhm.
and friends of mine had got friends in uh, SoCal, uh, and I had a message from one of my friends one day saying, "Right, uh, Mario and Miguel are over in London. There's the big DJ Expo on at the NEC in Birmingham. Can they come and stay at yours?" And I said, "Well, I checked with the wife, and of course they can." And so we had two complete strangers come and stay with us, and it was amazing. And they, again, such awesome, awesome people. And we only see the negatives coming out of the States via the media. It's because it's clickbait headlines, isn't it? Let's face it. They want you to click on their headlines. So let's promote this negative. Of course, everybody likes to hear bad things. Well, you know what? I'd much rather hear nice things. And my
Yeah.
experiences with folks in the States so far, it has only been online apart from meeting Mario and Miguel. Uh, Nothing but positive, and it completely blows the press narrative out of the water.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. And I was
Nice
like,
to know they're saying nice things about us.
oh, yeah, it's a press, isn't it? Nobody believes them anyway, because how do you know a journalist's lying? His lips are moving. Right, I am going to go and cook my son some dinner. Joel,
All right, sir.
thank you so much. Like I say, I'm still absolutely blown away. My head is still really, really spinning at this. Folks, all the links for Joel's site and his social media will be down. Oh, sorry, one last question. I In the new year, I am going to purchase your online course. That's a given. Marketing. Views on marketing, because every year we see the bow companies launch new bows, we see the arrow companies launch new arrows.
Mhm.
That marketing's trying to tell us that you buy a new bow, you buy a shiny new bow, you buy shiny new arrows, they're going to make you a better shooter.
Mhm.
And no, they're not. Do you see it as much in the States where people think they'll spend 1,500, £1,600 on a new bow, 500 quid on a new set of arrows, but they're resistant to spend a couple of 300 quid on coaching, which is where the biggest difference in their archery will come from.
Yeah, we see that a lot here as well, but shot control is a thing by which you are judged now.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just a thing. It's become a thing, right? You can buy the latest and greatest bow, the best release, whatever you want. But if you punch the trigger, it's now undeniable because we know now, right? We
Yeah,
know that if you punch a trigger, there's going to be pre-ignition movements linked to the trigger motor program. That's not my opinion. That's not Joel Turner's opinion. That's how our brain works.
yeah,
So you don't even know what a bow really feels like if you punch the trigger on it because you grab the bow handle anyways
yeah,
when you punch the trigger. So you don't really even get to know what it feels like. So we see that a lot here as well. I watched some garbage the other day in the outdoor channel about this guy telling me how much his now that he got this new stabilizer, it cured his target panic. I'm like, come on, man. That is such BS.
No, it really doesn't.
So, I mean, the code has been cracked, the information is out there. The online course, it's once you buy the course, you have it for life. And
Yeah,
I update it. When I come up with new things that will help you, I will do new modules. Those get put into the course. When you log into the course again, you have it. It's not like I'm not charging you a subscription per year or anything like that. When you buy it, you have it, and you can always refer back to it. You can question me. There's a thing in the course where I can get, you can write comments. I read every one of those. I will answer you back. Sometimes if I'm sitting in a tree stand for a few days, it might take me a few days to get back to you. But I, I don't have an assistant or anything like that. You're talking directly to me.
yeah,
So don't be afraid to send me questions, whatever. If you've taken the course, if you haven't taken the course, if you haven't taken the course and you ask me questions that are answered in the course, I will obviously refer you to that.
yeah,
I will answer the best of my ability, but I'm not going to type you a big diatribe of what's in the course.
yeah,
But I am here to help you. I want people in control because it just makes for happier folks.
yeah.
So,
Ah, wonderful. Thank you so much for that. Right, I'm going to let you get off. So I'm going to go and cook my son some dinner now.
all
It's
right.
been such a pleasure. Thank
All
you
right.
so much.
Well,
Right,
have a
I'm
Merry Christmas,
just
sir.
about to hit the stop recording. Oh, damn, I'm dragging my own image around there. You too, Joel. Thank you so much.